Welcome, Sarah. Okay, we're on.
Good afternoon. And Randall, just real quick to see on the agenda about Guy and I, we're
Uh-huh,
trying to coordinate a time to meet this
I
week.
understand.
Okay.
Yeah. No, he said as much and he explained to me what all the different things he was doing. I said, well, Guy, I'm standing here, I'm listening to this, but I'm not going to process all this and be able to regurgitate it at the meeting. So you can tell us what you guys have figured out to date, but I think he will do that when he gets here. So we'll kind of bounce him down the agenda until he shows up. But welcome, Laurie, Sarah, Lynn, Tom, and Jeff in a mysterious, ghostly manner. Uh, First of all, I'd like to ask all of you if you approve the agenda for today's meeting. And you can just, well, I guess Laurie's not visible, but we got Tom and Lynn and myself. And I think Laurie's magically appearing. And was that wave a yes, or was that yes? Okay. The agenda is approved. And I sent out a thing. It wasn't termed minutes, but it was a summary of the last meeting to you all. I didn't hear anything back on that. Do you have anything on the minutes of the March? I think it should have been the April. I think it was the April 1st meeting uh, of the committee. Any corrections? Lynn, we can't hear you again.
I'm sorry. And that was the day after my surgery, so I couldn't take notes. And so if you want me to, I'm off drugs. I'm completely back to normal. And so I'm happy to take notes today if you'd like.
That would be great. I really appreciated your doing that, and you did a great job. So that would be handy.
Okay.
Thank you. And you can always review the recording, if you whatever, for
Thank you.
clarifications. So do we have approval of the minutes as provided? Yes, yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Those have been approved as presented. Conflict of interest declarations. Tom, do you have any?
I have no conflicts.
Okay, Lynn,
Nope.
Laurie.
No conflicts.
Okay, thank you. So what do we do when Guy shows up and I don't remember to ask him if he had any? Okay. Okay, we have number 5 here. We have timeline tracking, and that was referring, Lynn, to your suggestion. And I'm not sure where you want to start on that, but I'll leave it up to you to introduce that.
Sure. I'm that kid in school who never wanted to be late with my projects or I'm a little obsessive compulsive in timeliness. But when I was talking to Guy and then looking at our schedule, I thought, whoa, we've got 7 months left. And particularly Guy and I were doing some work this week on some ordinance language, and I have multiple commitments for the next 7 months, as I know all of you do. And so part of what I was freaked out about is if someone drops something and if we decide like in September that we need to get X done, I want us to start outlining that because we all have competing priorities. And I think if we could just scope the work between now and when we're trying to be done, which is November. And I don't mean in detail. I'm not talking about a Gantt chart. I'm talking about, okay, good news. April, we got the meeting started. Sarah, this might play to you. Let's just say June, we're going to have the housing consultant meet with us and tell us what we have to do to meet the new state housing standards. But just blocking what has to be done by when to meet the November timeline, which I can't do by myself because I don't know all the parts and the sequence we think makes sense. But having a broad outline of that would help me with work management, just in terms of getting things on time. And I think when I talked to Guy, he thought it would be helpful too, because he's got, probably as many or more commitments than I do. So I don't know if you want to talk about that right now. We can talk about it sometime during the meeting, but it's important to get that frame put on our work, it seemed to me.
It's a good idea. So Laurie and I, when we work together, since our responsibility were the value statements and getting public input on that, we've lined out to kind of finish our work, we hope, by the end of May and present that at the homeowners meeting so that we can get resolute, at least enough resolved in that to say, okay, these values can be used to work on implementing ordinances and the work that you guys are, that Lynn and Guy are working on. So it's in a way, the ball's in your court to say, well, we're going to start having meetings in June, and then how you're attacking that, I don't know. If Laurie and I have completed our basic tasks with the values at that point, and they seemed resolved, we'll be available and help you guys do the meetings for the implementing ordinances and all the stuff that you guys are looking at now. We could help you with once we're done
Right.
by June. So I'm not sure how much we can help you before then.
No, that's helpful. That timeline's helpful. And then maybe Sarah wants to jump in here too, in terms of those housing, because and you probably had the same conversation with Guy. Whatever the state's requirements are going to be, or the counties or everyone's for housing, that's a big issue in NESCO in terms
Sure.
of a land restriction, a land restricted kind of area. So, but that's exactly, Rand, what I was wanting to do is plug in the key deliverables. So we now have end of May, the values are adopted, implementing ordinances comes after that. And I think I'll be happy to maintain the calendar, but and Tom, when you see a first draft of the plan, even looking out that far, getting all that kind of framed up, then we have a map to get done.
It seems like we need to have a draft of the plan before we talk about the ordinances, because the ordinance are supposed to relate to the plan. So getting that draft of the plan, either the new reorganized one or just go back to the one that we've got, one way or the other. It seems like in June, once the value statements are done, we need to have a document that people can look at and say, this is what we're revising. What ordinances do we need to build on this for the future? And what land use goals were not addressed in the last one that we want to add to the new one as an addition? And how would we respond to those goals for our community?
Plus, we have to have a value that is going to drive any new implementing ordinance. It has to come out of the values. So we really kind of have to anticipate what any new proposals for recommendations to the county based on the values that we've finished by June 1st. So there's a little bit of overlap here that could be a little scratchy, in that we might do all the values of the things we're aware of, but we'll still need values for things. If there's a new proposal for a recommendation to the county about a specific implementing ordinance, you need to have a value to drive that recommendation. So we're, in a way, there's an overlap and a teamwork part of this. Whenever Guy and Lynn find something that they're proposing that's new, we have to design a value that explains why that is being proposed.
Well, it seems like the values, I mean, if you go by what the bylaws committee did, they were changing the whole thing up until the end.
Right.
And there's a good chance that we're not voting to implement the values in May. They're going to evolve over the summer. And so it seems like as things come up and we ask the question, does this thing that we're proposing as an ordinance reflect one of the values that we have? And if people say, no, but we really want this, then we could say, what value does
Would drive
this
it.
correspond to? And shall we propose that to the community as a new value?
Right.
And because, I mean, when you talk about timelines, what we discussed before was that values would be, and vision would be April and May. June, July, and August would be the meat of the like ordinances, the revising the plan, the kind of nitty gritty of the technical stuff.
Mm-hmm.
September was to be looking at it all as a group, kind of as a document, a fully envisioned plan. October was the community voting on it, and November was the county accepting it. And so,
Sarah, do we have to get, I don't know if it's one way or the other. Do we need to get approval by the county, I guess by your council to review the whole thing to say, yes, it's legit before we vote on it?
So there's hang on, I'm going to close my door. There's there's a couple of things. There's a lot of good work to unpack and all the things that you guys are talking about right now. So couple of things. So these revisions require public hearings.
Sure.
Right. So we're also looking at, when we look at whatever proposed changes that you guys want to make. So Lynne, Guy and I did have a very brief conversation, I think before the planning commission hearing. When we start talking about removing or adding uses, so I'm talking about things outside of Senate Bill 406, you start working through vested property rights. And there's a lot of law that comes into that. And then there's also the risk factor of the county of being sued for property takings. So there's a lot in that piece alone.
So Sarah, let me just ask you just to be sure I understand. So because when Guy and I were having the conversation, Guy did took one of the ordinances, edited out stuff. And we talked about it, and he gave a reason, and I understood this thinking behind all of it. Some of it was extraneous, etc. Some of it was perhaps policy. But what you're saying is taking stuff out of existing ordinances opens up a whole bunch of work.
And potential litigation.
Yeah, so okay, because
Yeah.
the whole time we were doing that, I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, because in the last community plan, we didn't go down to the ordinance level because there was no point. And that's because of that very reason, that there was, because I said to Guy at one point, I said, so Guy, if someone sues us.
Meaning the county, they're not going to sue Nesco and they're going to sue Tillamook County.
Well, first I was like, can you be sure and tell me that they can't sue us, because that's my own paranoia. But he said, oh, that it's the county they sue. And I thought, well, okay, so Sarah, this is really helpful, because I think even though Guy was trying to just get things to rational housekeeping, but there's a step in between that where an existing property owner gets to say, no, I bought this property, plan on this property under this set of rules. And if you change those rules, you're going to have to go through, or those. Have I got that right?
You are 100% right, okay. Lynne, thank you. Now, the only place we have reprieve from that is with Senate Bill 406.
Yes, okay.
Okay, because that's legislative directed. So to the timeline questions, because I really appreciate, again, all of this conversation. This is what I would offer, because I think you're all right. Everyone's correct in what they're saying. I think that while the values work is done and all of this is living and breathing, This will all continue to shift and change and expand and detract and do all of the things it's going to do right up until the chair of the Board of County Commissioners hits the gavel. Right? And then we have to send notice out to participants and we wait for an appeal. And if something's appealed, depending on what that appeal looks like at the state level, then we go through that whole shifting and shaping, right? So really, it's not done until it's done and an appeal period runs out where no one is challenging the work. I think that as the values element is working through, I think the most important thing that can be done at the same time is, you know, especially with the work of Tom in helping to organize the community plan. I think that's where you look at the restructuring and the housekeeping and what's still relevant and what's not, right? Because I think there's a lot to do, and I think that's going to be the bulk of the work, to be honest with you, with you guys, with everything that we're doing. I agree that the ordinance updates are informed by the comp plan policies and by the work that the values, you know, piece of this is doing. So I think that what happens is, like the work of the comp plan, Lynn, maybe this is where you and I and Guy tackle, and we have that conversation about the legal elements, the litigation, the takings, what you're thinking should be proposed to be removed and why, or what should be added. And so you and I and Guy can have those conversations. There were a few things that he talked about, like residential care facilities and treatment centers. By law, you have to leave those in.
Right. Okay.
And that is a federal law requirement. They don't let you take those out.
Okay.
And that law is there to protect and to support the need for those facilities to be included in communities, right?
Right.
So those are the pieces that we can have the conversation about and report back to the group as a whole. But
And
I think,
Sarah,
yeah.
one more question on that. My recollection is this process in the past and in other locations, and our conversation around residential facilities was, do we have a moral obligation here to tune this up to make it better than it is? Because it's unrealistic what they've outlined. But if that's the law, we leave it, we walk away. That the state has to deal with the fact that they can't get these places located because the ordinances don't match current reality. So that's not our worry. But
right, that's a lot of work at the OHA and others have to do.
Perfect.
Right.
So, but for us, don't we need to be strategic in looking at, if we decide to remove anything from an ordinance, we have to look at, seems to me, two things. One is that it's complicated, you know, to just say it as simply as I can. And two is we shouldn't even have a meaty discussion around that topic until we get this housing thing figured out. Because quite honestly, I think the housing thing is the 800-pound gorilla in the room, I don't mean that in a pejorative sense. Yeah. I just mean it's a big thing, and we are required, as I understand it, to make progress there. So I really feel like the sooner we can get that schedule set up, the better we will all be.
So, and in that sense, I mean, just going back to the schedules and the timelines. So our work has to be done. Everything has to be wrapped up by early spring of 2025. So basically we've got a year, because then I have to go into hearings and have all of this adopted by June 2025. So I think that the idea of the timeline, we're going to see a lot of overlap, because I think we're going to have pieces moving together, and it is probably going to feel a little messy and chaotic, but it's all going to come together at the end. Because I think that, you know, again, the work that you guys are doing on the values and spearheading that piece of it is going to inform policies, which is going to inform ordinances to the best extent possible, right? But in the meantime, as you're working on that, I think Tom can work with everyone to get the comp plan house in order so that the structure is there to welcome these updates, right, in a way that makes sense. And in the meantime, we're going to start tackling the housing piece. I do have a model ordinance. I don't expect the consultants to join us for a couple of more months. And what I anticipate is in each of the CACs, this working group, we are going to all meet together. Okay, so it'll be, this committee from Pacific City, this committee from Oceanside, this committee from Netards, because we're all in the same boat. I do have a presentation together for Senate Bill 406. I just gave it to Oceanside, to their committee, like yours, the other day. And I am happy to do that here as well at an upcoming meeting. The thing that you all should know is that for Oceanside, we just did a community plan update for them in 2019. They are not getting the overhaul like Nescoin and a few other places are. Their demographics, their values, all of that stuff we have done very recently. Nescoin, Beaver, Hebo, Cloverdale, we have not touched those plans in 20 years. So if you are visiting and sharing information, I have been clear in saying some are complete overhaul because they need an update because it's been over 20 years. Others, if we've done the work in the last few years, we're focusing on those community plan updates solely in terms and with focus to the housing updates. So there are some nuances with each of your plans, but for purposes of implementation of 406, we are all very similar in what is going to be added, but then also where there's areas for some flexibility and some input by these committees. So, Randall, I don't know if maybe at the meeting on Wednesday, if you think that would be the appropriate time for me to give that presentation. If you would like to wait for an upcoming meeting, I do think this committee as a whole needs to hear it, regardless of separate assignments and tasks, because I think it's going to inform everyone at the work you're doing.
I guess I would want it to be at a meeting that had the most people at it.
Okay.
Than just I don't know how these meetings are gonna go. There's only 2 people signed up for Wednesday so far and 1 for Saturday. So we have a flyer to go out to stimulate more people, but Jeff has said he gets at the most like 18 responses that people even open the flyer. So it's just I talked to a guy on the road today who's riding by, who's from Nescoin, and he says, yeah, I don't like meetings. And, I was trying to encourage him. I don't think I even sold him on it. So it's rough to recruit here.
When is the meeting on the 20th? Because I do have my Pacific City Wood CAC meeting at 10 a.m.
Oh, well, that's when
that's when the meeting is.
So, but let me ask a quick question there. If we're getting that kind of response and on the values too, should we eliminate are we having too many meetings and try and force everyone into one time? I mean, to have a meeting for 2 people is,
No, it's a hybrid meeting. So people will be on the Zoom call. We're talking about the live. We're just starting the live meeting. So I don't know. The general meeting had 28 people, right? Isn't that what attended the general meeting? And that's the big meeting, and it's the whole group, and it's not real tied down to one specific issue. So we've had years where we had 7 to 10 people at 90% of the meetings, and that's how the CAC rolled. Now we have more people and we have Zoom happening, but we have to, go ahead, Laurie.
Well, I have a serious problem with those announcements saying that you have to RSVP and register in advance. You don't have to do that on Zoom. And I think it gives people an excuse to not show up if they had the time and they had their friend called and said, I'm walking over to the golf course right now. Let's come to the meeting with me. And you've said on all of the announcements that you have to RSVP and you have to come early and blah, blah, blah. I think everyone that we send out should say everyone is welcome come when you can. I cannot
Mhm.
believe we're going to overfill the golf course facility. It's just like shooting ourselves in the foot for trying to get people to feel like this is a spontaneous thing to do.
So Jeff was sending us a final shot at the flyer if we want to make corrections.
Yeah, we can
Which-
take the
Yeah.
RSVP out since given that it does not seem very likely that we are going to fill the place up. But we put that in because if we got 40 people, like we would have had a problem, and we would
Yeah, we had to
which
refund.
seemed totally unlikely since we only get 30 on Zoom.
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah.
we need to be realistic about the attendance.
Okay, well, we're adjusting
Yeah.
now. So Jeff, Jeff has I didn't see it in the announcement that you were gonna bring it up today or share it with us before it went out. I think I have the last thing that you did send out. But yeah, I think it would be great to say, please RSVP if you plan to attend, but don't let that, don't prevent that from just showing up, because we're happy to have you participate in the meeting. So I think
Get
that's,
rid of the RSVP, get rid of the RSVP.
okay.
So that
okay.
people don't have that in their mind, that they have to sign up in advance. Zoom people do not have to sign up in advance.
Well, they
I think
do,
want-
but
They have to
they
get
can-
the invitation and
But
then
Okay,
you
they
can
so-
do
sign
it,
up.
So
you
as
can
someone
do it as you come to the meeting. You can do it 2 minutes in advance of the meeting.
That's true.
Okay.
So as the person who never RSVPs in advance, because I'm flying by the seat of my pants, and clicks the link 2 minutes before the meeting starts, because I'm rolling back in on a Saturday, Jeff, I still have to put in my information and then I actually hit click to join.
Yeah.
So it doesn't, yeah.
I do that too.
Okay, it's not just
It's
me.
not the same. So if we now that we know that we're not having an avalanche of people who want to come to this in-person meeting, we can take it out. Yet, okay.
Yeah, I agree.
Yes.
It's a yet, because we will have them.
Yeah, like we're gonna have crowd control there on Wednesday.
Well, as the weather gets better, if there's an overflow, they can just go out to the patio and we could have a screen out there. I mean, I think we can figure this out to get people in person if we want. The other thing is on the first paragraph of your announcement, personally, I would say for those of you who are remote,
And by the way, do we want to do this now, or do we want to kind of try to follow the agenda?
whatever.
Well, as long as we get to it, that's the key.
And
I was just
Randall, no, I'm so sorry. Now I'm stressed out about Saturday. I don't know how I missed that overlap. So if we could talk about that at some point too, please.
So relating to Sarah's point and to Rand's point and to Jeff's point here, one other thing, I just want to go back because I want to go back to the agenda a little bit here, but I think we need to obviously resolve this. This is a finite process. This is not entertainment for people who have nothing better to do, with all due respect. And what we don't want is to get to November and someone says, I never knew this was going on. I never got invited. I don't like this. We need to announce at this very first meeting that this process will terminate in spring of 2025 and our product will be delivered in November of 2024. So if you are interested in this, please tell your friends, your family, your neighbors, everyone, because the train is leaving the station. And it's not that we won't listen to you, but we do not have the resources, funds, or staff, or time, quite honestly, to go back every meeting and say, well, I wanted to hear about the housing thing. I didn't know Sarah Absher was coming to talk about the housing. I mean, we have to get people focused and organized and disciplined, because this is not a free, open kind of drop in when you want because you think it might be fun today. This is way too hard to do that. So, and also you tend to get people, at least in the past, those people who come in at the end often come in at the end for a reason, because they know you're out of time and they want to blow it up, or they want to contest it, or they want to throw a wrench in the process. And so we need to be realistic about what we're doing here. And so, and to that point, Sarah, I think we want to, if you're going to come talk about housing, we want to put that in the invite to the meeting right up front, because that is the big thing. And that will get people there. And my guess is, even if we put it out for the Wednesday meeting, our attendance would go up. But I'm not saying we have to, and you have to tell us when you can come and when it's appropriate. But this is gonna wrap up in November, and people need to prioritize it now if they want to participate.
I get that, but we have been saying that in the last 2 general meetings. We've said, now is the time to pay attention. This is when we're going to have meetings. And we said there'd be 2 meetings in April and 2 meetings in May. And we've told them when the April meetings were going to be. So we need to be accountable and have the meetings when we said we were going to have them. And the May ones, we have not told them the agendas yet. So if the May one needs to be about housing and values, personally, I would put it into June, because I don't think the housing is the values, but whatever. But we have not given them what the agenda was exactly for May or the dates, but we have for April, and it seems like we need to be accountable to that.
Yeah, I echo that, Laurie. And again, I just have to apologize for my oversight. And this is the Pacific City Woods General meeting, and they do not meet as often as other CACs. What I would also offer is, to all of these excellent points, how we protect the integrity of this process is to post the agendas. We're inviting people to come. They don't have to. Putting these recordings up later. If someone comes in August and says, wait a minute, I had no idea you guys were talking about this. Oh, great. Well, you know what? If you go back to this meeting that's posted, you can listen in. Right? That's how we respond to those concerns. And we say, well, we did hold several meetings. They were posted here. They were talked about at general membership. We're so sorry you weren't able to attend. But this information is available for you to review online if you'd like to go back and listen at your leisure. This happens to me all of the time. The rural residential 2-acre amendments that Guy was talking about, I have not had one person attend those hearings.
Unbelievable.
So it happens. And, I think, but like your process, I'm doing the same thing. I've sent out my notices. I have everything posted. I talk about it with you guys. I talk about it with others. The information is out there. So whatever happens at the end, I can say I followed my process. I was transparent. All of this is accessible online. I'm very sorry that you're just finding out about this now, but we have to keep moving forward.
Right.
And so that's what we're going to do. Whether it's 20 people or 2 people that attend our meetings, we can check all the boxes that this was always accessible and available.
Great.
Yeah. And that's where the value is.
Okay.
Yeah. I think I should maybe do that presentation in June. We have time. We have that time. I appreciate how diligent you guys are on timelines and wanting to get things done timely. And this is a lot of work. And I just want to thank you again for what you guys are willing to do and the amazing work you're doing. But for the housing stuff, we got a little bit of time, I think there's plenty to work on between the values, auditing the comp plan or the community plan for what it is. There's a lot of good work to do in the meantime.
Yeah. So, let's see, we have the, timeline tracking. Guy, we're coming back to, well, the debrief on the 13th meeting was just that everyone approved of the values. It was like, okay, well, this could be easy, right? This part. So all I know is we'll continue at this meeting to present those. And we'll see if we continue to get approval or if someone wants to diddle with the wording or something like that. But so far seems pretty gentle.
Fran, can I pop in here? Just like,
Sure.
like since I'm sitting in these meetings, I'm gonna like go ahead and exert my privilege. I think the right way to think of it is not like, who would ever disagree with any of those other than two people, and I actually know who they are, but I'm not going to tell you. um, um, but
They're not showing up so far.
Okay. The expectation should not be that anyone's going to go like throw this value overboard, because that's also, that stuff is all mom and apple pie. Of course they're going to love that.
Yeah.
It is, if you present them with other values or values that are in conflict with those, does a picture emerge where like something is shifted, or whether, given that you don't have an infinite amount of space, you need to put something higher, like drop something off. So I wouldn't think, oh, everyone agreed with those, we're fine. I would think like you just have to do a little bit more work to kind of surface how what people think about has changed, because I'm pretty sure that it's changed in 20 years, at least some of what's important to people. So that's my 2 cents. Yeah.
Jeff, give us an example, because what you have to do to throw those or to change those values is to say, really, what I would like Nescoin to be is a rural community health center for the state's tremendously large mental health problem. You know, so, and I'm creating that out of nothing to make the point. You have to put a straw model up there to get people to do that. And I don't think it's our job to put those straw models up. If the people don't ever put them up, they don't see them.
So I think the place to poke that matters is housing.
Yes.
None of those values really, like they say a little bit, like the private residences, but they don't say that like people who work in Tillamook County should be it should be easy for those people to live here, or it should be easy for people who live in Nescoin or who work in Nescoin to live in Nescoin, stuff like that.
So that's a new value. That's a new value.
Yeah, but some of those have some tension with like they don't obviously conflict with the other values, but there's the values we have, like they don't say single family. I think actually maybe they do say single family residence somewhere in there, but it's everywhere in there. Like that is the subtext, is that like these are all houses and it's people and if you surface values where with a different housing profile, the state and the county is steering us towards, that may produce a different set.
Totally get it. But here's why I think we've covered that. I don't want to have that discussion with people until we hear from the state and from Sarah, this is what is required, because we'll have a whole lot of reactivity to something that's not grounded in the world, in what's happening right now. And so I think after we hear from Sarah, people say, well, wait a second, I'd like the values to change, because now that I know that this state requirement, and we don't have any ability to contest that, we're not going to change the Senate bill. So I think if we start with data and then move to values, we'll have a richer discussion.
Sure, I think that makes total sense. I just wanted to kind of surface I was sensing some complacency, like, oh, everyone agrees with our values, we're done. And I don't think that's the case. So
well, that's not what I'm saying is the current values that carry over from the current community plan are, as you say, somewhat mom and apple pie, so they're not very controversial. As far as I'm concerned, that's a good thing, because we have work to do to create the new values that will be driving different actions. So if the vision includes securing the watershed, that means you have to state a value for having secure water and a clean water supply for our community in perpetuity. We have to buy the property. Okay, well, you're bound to get pushback on that. Why do we buy that? Why are we spending that money? Blah, blah, blah. If you want to have your housing for people who work in Nescoin, should probably be out of the tsunami zone. So you're not building new housing for people who work here that gets washed away with the village. If you want to have emergency vehicle safe there to help us when the tsunami comes. You probably shouldn't have it be in the tsunami zone. It should be up the hill, so it's there when you need it. So those are things that would be new values that will be controversial, that will bring out the people in the woodwork, because they are things that are really thoughtful things about the future and will be controversial, and we'll have to air those. I'm just saying, if we can keep the ones that are there now and they're not messing around with too much, and that, I would say that's a kind of a good sign. We got plenty of work to do new ordinances. But so I'm not feeling complacent. I just want to get to the new ones, and I really didn't want to spend 3 to 4 meetings on the current ones if we don't have to.
Sure, that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, and I would say, if you're looking at, doing the check-in, is the vision and values of the community still the same? Are the existing vision and values still relevant? Yes or no? Where do they need to change? Then it is those vision and values that support the policy. So I think once you have the vision and values in place, and you determine what's still relevant and what needs to be updated, then you take those in relation to the policies, and you see, are these policies still relevant? Do they support the vision and values of the community, right? So I think, again, that's where, working on those together. A word of caution, just as we're thinking about this, because the tsunami comment is an important conversation, and that is extremely controversial. And state law only limits or prohibits essential and critical facilities in tsunami inundation zones, right? Everything else, you got to have a path or a way out, which is already reflected in the tsunami hazard overlay zone, which already applies to Nescoen. What this Senate bill requires us to do, and by us, I mean all of us, we cannot treat housing types differently from one another. So a fourplex has to be looked at exactly like a single family dwelling. So if you say this is a tsunami inundation zone and we should not put multifamily housing in it, what we are then also saying is you cannot put a single family dwelling.
Right.
And that's what gets us back to those takings issues and those property rights issues. So whether or not fundamentally or philosophically you agree with that is not relevant. What that law requires us to do is we have to look at them all the same and treat them equally. So if you say something, if the community thinks that, oh, well, a triplex or a fourplex, that's not really safe here, then what we are saying is neither is a single family dwelling.
Right.
Okay, so if we take that bold step, which I am
It's true.
confident, unfortunately, we are not going to be able to take, okay? Because that goes back to the risk and the property rights and taking of property rights. But are we looking at evacuation routes? Are we looking at lighting and different things? Yes.
Well, and Sarah, correct me if I'm wrong, Senate Bill 406 does not say that you can violate the state water and environmental laws.
That is correct.
So for example, if you wanted to take every vacant lot in Nescoen and put a sixplex on it, you'd have to figure out, or a fourplex, you'd have to figure out if the water and sewer system can support it.
That's right. And how you do that is with water and sewer availability letters, which are currently required for single family dwellings. So again, that process, that's how you address that. We will not be able to split hairs and differentiate between a single family dwelling and 4 units. Anything after 4, yes. But 4 or less, we have to treat them all like we would treat a single family dwelling. So Randall, I know that is not palatable, and that's going to be a really hard concept to socialize in the community. And I'm prepared to start doing that. That is the tough work that I have to do.
Well, and isn't it clear, Sarah, that, tell me if there's something I'm missing here. If someone, and because we need to protect ourselves from the amount of time we have to spend on this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
If someone wants to change that, they need to get down to Salem and deal with it.
That's right.
The ship sailed. And I don't think we should take the heat. If
No.
we need to, we'll get one of our legislators there to explain,
No.
this is the.
So Lynn, this is my job.
Good.
This is where I come in.
Good.
So you guys, your focus is on vision and values, policies. We're going to talk about what's there currently, what should be modified. And you're going to help. What you are going to do is be in the role with me of where I say, these are the elements of Senate Bill 406, where we have some ability to provide feedback based on the uniqueness of Neskowin. Do you want everything to have a front porch? You know what, when we talk about parking, would you like to see some landscaping? Those are the things with housing that we are going to talk about. And other than that, the work of this committee will shift because the other pieces of that are technical pieces, part of that bill that I am the one that I am responsible for making sure follow through. Just, yeah.
Okay.
What the good part about that is the pressure is not on you, right? It's not. So that gives you that time and space and that preservation probably of some relationships in your community where you don't have to debate that.
Well, I wanted for years to put out there that if we were really looking 20 years out, we'd start moving the village up the hill, but that's not gonna happen. Because the
It's not
zoning's all wrong and those people are just gonna die.
We don't have the money,
No.
Randall. I sat on a C
know.
grant working group with Oregon State University and a team of people that are much smarter than I am. And went through a 2-year conversation of preparing for 20 years. And the bottom line was, as good as the data was and as good as the plans were, there's not the money. The state doesn't have the money to support us to do that work.
Okay.
We are where we are.
Right. So there'll be a bit of a blind spot in our planning just because it's not available.
That's
Can't do
right.
it.
But
Okay.
I would just, in your conversations with people, because I'm going to have this visit with Guy too, be really careful what you're saying about 406 and middle housing, because we cannot discriminate between middle housing and single family dwellings. What will apply to one applies to all. And so if we start talking about limits or prohibitions for 2, 3, or 4 family dwellings, I'm going to have to apply those to a single family dwelling too. And I know that's not what anyone's intent is, but that is the reality of how that bill is structured.
I just think we say that right up front. I mean, this is
Yep.
the kind of stuff, because the other thing we don't know is we don't know when the earthquake happened. We don't know what it looks like. We don't know if it's a tsunami we need. I mean, obviously there's a very real risk of it happening. And there are a lot more people. There's also a very real risk of it happening in San Francisco, right? So I just think people have been forging ahead forever on the notion that all the parameters laying, and if we put them up front, and Sarah, I think you are the credible spokesperson here. If you say in the first meeting you attend, middle housing equals single residential, it's state law. Don't bother yourselves with these people here with your plan, because that's the way it is, and you need to think, and people will get creative and think about solutions to problems. That's all they have to do.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look at, like with Oceanside too, if you look at the lotting patterns in the village of Oceanside, which is very similar to the lotting patterns in the village of Neskowin, you've got historically mapped and platted properties. You're not going to see a lot of multifamily housing, but where you may see it is in the fringes and in some of the upperland areas. You know, so I think with that reality, Lynn, is the other piece of, I do not expect every property to now be converted to a duplex, a triplex, or a fourplex. We all know that's not going to happen. The whole point of this is to provide those opportunities where they can exist.
Yep. Understood.
So Sarah, are there, I'm assuming you have eagle eyes on all these community plans. Are there things that other community plans have stated as values that we should be aware of, that we may not think of, that you could help us when you see something happening in another community that seems applicable or that we haven't come up with, that would be helpful to us, because we're not looking at all. I mean, I should probably go look at all those plans, but
Yeah, no,
so far I
they're
have
very,
not done so.
the good news is, because we had the same staff and consultants that did them before, they are all very similarly themed, right? There are unique elements because each community is unique, but largely that overarching theme is the same. What I am seeing a strong desire for in a lot of communities is community connectivity. Like, Nescoin has the golf club, clubhouse, you have the NCA, you have the CAC, you have art galleries and commercial enterprises that all host, you have a farmer's market. These all help foster and help promote those connections of community and community service and civic opportunities. The thing that I'm seeing the most in other communities, aside from their desperate want of housing, is they also want those pieces that Nescoin largely has. So in some of those other places, that's what I'm focusing on is, well, maybe we should make a community center allowed outright, or maybe we need to figure out how to promote, other elements. I'm looking at parks and, different things that we can put in to, promote some of those other pieces that Nescoin fortunately already has. So
Mhm.
I would say that's the big difference right now. But in working
Okay.
with everybody at once, yeah, when I see those things, I'll make sure that I share.
All right, thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, well, it's almost 3, no Guy yet. So we should, let's see. Well, I guess let's tackle your problem on Saturday, because
So sorry.
how do we have a meeting if we don't have you there with the hybrid equipment? It's already operating another meeting.
Yep. And well, that's just it. I am I don't know how I missed that one, because I went back and checked twice, Randall, to make sure that I didn't have any conflicts. So there, yeah, go ahead, Lynn.
So here's a possible solution. What time is the Pacific City meeting?
It's going to be from 10. They usually go to 11:30.
Okay.
Oh,
So could we, I mean, I don't know about workforce standards, but we could presumably start like at 12:30. We could adjust our time, not our date. That requires you all to be amenable to that. And alternatively, we could look at another weekend. I mean, particularly since we're getting a meeting going, I feel really good that we're going to get a meeting launched on the 17th, right?
yeah.
That's our first meeting. So that's great. And if we have to postpone, delay, or reschedule Saturday, I think that's okay. I mean, doesn't seem like, and Pacific City's a lot more people than Nescoin. I mean, we're the ones that are going to be smaller impact in rescheduling. But the question is you, Sarah, and the county's ability to do both.
Is there a way for us to do a hybrid that's not as sophisticated as with Sarah's equipment, where we're at the golf course, we have the Zoom meeting, and like one of the parts of the Zoom is a camera that's showing the people that are there present? Or is there a way to do a Zoom hybrid meeting without the fancy equipment?
If it's just us and Susan, we could just stick a laptop on the table and sit around it.
You could.
Yeah.
And then you can record it, and then you can hear people and still ask questions. I have a little hockey puck speaker that I am happy to loan if you would like to use that for the meeting, so that you can hear and there's more audio. And then I can find it. I have a little camera that you can plug in to the side of your laptop that you could flip around and that could show the room too. And I could
It
bring
seems-
those Wednesday. If you guys wanted to have the meeting without me, I'm happy to share that equipment with you.
I think we should have what we can have and apologize for it not being as well put together as we'd hoped and say we'll do better next time. But let's do what we can for the people that put that on their schedule to participate.
Yeah.
So, and
I agree.
Laurie, they won't know a difference, most likely. It's just, it's what I used for hearings before I got my owl. So during the entire pandemic, it's what I used and it worked fine. It just didn't zoom into people as they were talking, but
Right.
it's going to show the whole room and it's going to pick up sound. So yeah, I think in fact, some people sans the Zoom feature of zooming in on people when they're talking, they may not even realize there's a difference.
I mean, given that lots of people participate with their cameras turned off, a square that's a blurry bunch of people at a table is probably
Mhm.
fine.
Oh, the only conflict I would anticipate would be the echo chamber if people are trying to both use.
But that's going to happen with an owl ran. So you just
Yeah.
got to make sure everybody turns all their stuff off.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So that's manageable in a small group.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll just stay on
Do you want me
schedule.
to bring that
Yeah,
for
bring
you
what you
on
have
Wednesday?
that we can
Okay.
use. I'm gonna try and get Derek there. Jeff, you're not available, or are you
No,
available?
I'm available, but it'd be great, like if Derek
Train somebody.
is willing to what?
It'd be good if we could train Derek to be a
Yeah.
backup, so it's not always on you to do this.
Yeah, I haven't called him back yet, but I have that on my agenda, and he's never attended an NCAC meeting to my
I'm aware of that.
knowledge, and like do you think he's gonna be
Yeah.
really be up for this? Like I don't know. So
He could have said no, he said yes, so that's
Okay.
what I'm going on. And he might be more intrigued once he gets involved.
Mhm.
One never knows, you just have
Yeah.
to try. So. Okay, so we're gonna fake it and use the stuff that Sarah brings us on Wednesday.
And for future learnings, because I know we were following the pattern that the bylaws committee did, but they would have 2 meetings in the same week with different agendas, and we put 2 meetings in the same week with the same subject matter. So maybe that's splitting
Well, because-
our audience a little bit, so for future.
Well, when you do it
Right.
on a weeknight, you're gonna lose some people. When you do it on a weekend, you're gonna lose other people. So we
Well,
figured.
but
the same
maybe
subject matter-
spread them out like by 2 weeks or something.
That's right.
Yeah.
So we just
Yeah.
we're trying to cover the ground with two different potential groups and say, well, we talked it over and we all had a chance to say something. We didn't hear anything, or we heard this, and we'll bring it back to the next one. So if we hear something Wednesday, we'll integrate that to Saturday, and then we'll see what happens. We just figure you kind of have to keep the topic hot or it just gets lost. So, and
Oh, but
and
also
we need
keep in
to-
mind that like
on-
you can only get so much attention, and what bylaw, and I think probably bylaws is a really good kind of template for what we're going to be doing here. 'Cause
I've
it's a
never
different
understood
effort.
that, Jeff. I just always expect more.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah,
we
but,
did.
know.
And so
Sarah's
Randall and I,
concern was burnout.
yeah, Randall and I did have the conversation about meeting fatigue.
Burnout.
You know,
Yes.
and so I think that's something that we all do need to be mindful of, you know,
Yeah.
and Jeff, to your point, maybe spreading them out once every 2 weeks might also help. Because Randall, it is, I think with the bylaws committee, what that showed was that we didn't lose interest in spreading them out 2 weeks. People stayed engaged.
Uh-huh.
But I
And-
also, I want to underscore here, the bylaws was a technical product produced by people who really wanted to produce high quality bylaws. And that's admirable and wonderful.
The gold
This is a
standard.
different thing. It's a community plan. It's a citizen thing. People should feel that their accessibility, we should give out Tootsie Roll Pops for people who come twice to these meetings.
Mhm.
Candidly, in the world we live in, that's a very high expectation for people to attend meetings. So I just think we're in a whole different league than the bylaws.
But one of the things that I wanted to
You're right.
kind of suggest is what I expect to have. Like the bylaws had like about four or five people that just like were really into it, and we're like at almost every meeting. And my guess is we're going to have the same thing and probably the same 4 or 5 people.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That will be consistent with the history of the CAC.
Yeah.
It's been 7 to
Until
12 people. Yeah.
until we get to the ordinances, and that is
Right.
where the rubber is going to meet the
Yeah.
road.
Yeah,
You know what to do if you want to get participation. Just put STR in the subject of your emails. Like it can just be like, we will not be talking about STRs, and people probably will show up just to make sure that you're
Yeah.
yeah.
well, the other
It's
thing
true.
is, if the same 4 or 5 people show up and talk about this for 8 meetings, that is not to our advantage. That'll be the first thing that'll come up in the ordinances. 5 people got in a room and produced something, and I don't agree with any of it, and I didn't come to the meetings because I pretty much like Nesco the way it is. I mean, we just remember, this is a different beast. This is a public process. It will be weighed and measured very differently than the bylaw effort.
Well, we will. I am I am the transparency guy at in the NCAC, and I will do everything I can to make this as visible to everyone as possible so that no one can say I didn't come to the meetings and I didn't realize you were doing things that would upset me.
Okay,
And
so I'd like to
sometimes-
comment on the bylaws process.
Go ahead, Tom.
Is that we did have the 5 or 6 people, and they changed, hammering on us on certain topics. However, that did change the bylaws. That was a process of evolution. So we paid attention, tried to think of ways that we could accommodate that, and it changed. In some places, it changed dramatically. So I don't think it's completely different.
Uh-huh.
The other thing I would offer is sometimes, to those comments, you just say thank you for your comments. Thank you for participating and showing up. You don't have to respond. You don't have to give an explanation. You just say thank you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Very important. Okay, so 17th and 20 meetings. I guess the key for what Laurie and I were looking for was to be able to glean something from each of those meetings to inform the next meeting, and we don't know what that's going to be. So I'm not sure what we can do before we have the meeting. So we're just going to have a meeting Wednesday and see if we get some input. Laurie?
Well, I was just going to say, if there isn't any in-depth discussion of the current values, like if we present each of them and say, does anyone have a comment? Are there any, updates or revisions that would make this even more appropriate? And everybody's like, no, it's fine the way it is. Then I think at each of those meetings, I imagine us moving on to, well, then if we are accepting all these, what do we want to put before the community as a potential new vision, and move right there?
Right.
I mean, if the responses we'd gotten at the poll at the general meeting was that all of them were disagree or kind of wishy-washy, maybe this might be okay, then I think we would have had more work on the actual ones that we have now. But since what we got was pretty much, we in general support those, then now I think we should open each of those meetings talking about the current ones in case people have something to say. And then if we have the luxury of time to move on in each of those meetings to new values.
Sure.
You're muted.
Go ahead, Lynne.
The only thing I was going to say is, I think we need a preamble here, and to me, it's something I wish Guy were on our call, because I think Guy is the guy to do it. We need to not open a door and we can have a robust discussion, but we need to frame the beast for people. This is not a process people have participated in most likely before. Maybe some of them were there 20 years ago, but we need to explain exactly what we can and cannot do with this process, to keep expectations appropriate. And I don't, to me, it seems like Guy's the best person to do that, or maybe Sarah's the best person. Sarah?
I think I need to, I appreciate that, Lynn, but I think I need to take the lead on that,
I
especially
would love
because
it.
I'm bringing
you
it
can
forward
do that
later.
on Wednesday, because
Mhm.
that's my biggest concern is
Mhm.
people need to have their feet on the ground and know the timelines, the parameters, and the limitations, which include litigation once it gets to the ordinance stage. And so, Sarah, thank you for covering that. That was my only concern.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I will. And especially because I have to bring all this forward to hearings later. So no,
We might
that's-
need to extract your presentation on Wednesday for the Saturday meeting.
We can just watch
Yeah.
the video.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
No, then I am really glad I'm not going to be there because I hate to see myself on video. Yeah, no, you can definitely do that. You could do a recap, or, again, if there's something else to talk about Saturday, say, yes, we did cover this on Wednesday. We encourage you to go back and look at the posting of the meeting. Because the other thing is, if you hold that line, not only does it help you manage your time and not get derailed, but it encourages people to start seeing all this stuff on the website as a resource. Right. And that's ultimately what you want as well. There's a lot of good things that come from that. Mhm. And I do agree with Tom, two things, two of my takeaways from the bylaws committee process was that the people that showed up routinely, yes, it was the same five, but I agree with Tom. There were some great conversations and feedback that came out of that I don't think any of us would have anticipated or thought about. They did help shape those bylaws. The other thing is some of your meetings are going to run long and some of them are not, and don't fill up time in a meeting just because of time. If you can get a meeting done early, I think people also appreciate having the time to get cut loose early, because then that way when you go over, it's because you have good reason to. Because we had some marathons of some meetings, Tom, didn't we? But they were good. But then, when we didn't have to meet as long, we didn't. I mean, there was one, it was like 15, 20 minutes, maybe 30. So I think that's also good too.
Okay. So Tom, do you have anything, you probably are not a free man yet.
Well, based on the general meeting, I'm a lot freer than I thought I'd be.
Oh, good.
Me too.
Have you been getting any feedback in email? Because there's only 2 more days. So
Not a thing.
all right. Well, you're fingers crossed.
Yeah. So I have worked a little bit on the document, and I'm glad to hear Sarah say that it needs an overhaul because it's very difficult to process. So if I can share the screen, nope, it's been disabled.
Well,
Please let me share the screen.
So I didn't realize we moved on to another agenda item.
Oh, okay.
Because the immediate, like, if you want to revise the email that's going out or make any changes to that, like that belongs under the April 17th and 20th agenda.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
I have one other change. It's in the first paragraph where you say, for those who are remote, you can also attend the meetings via Zoom. I would change can also to please. For those of you who are remote, please attend the meetings via Zoom.
Done.
I like it.
Okay. Let's see. So it doesn't sound like anyone else had any besides Laurie had some very good suggestions. Anyone else had any changes that they wanted to make?
Well, I had edited that 4 times before you got it with input from Laurie. So then you changed it pretty significantly, and I just went, okay, I've done this 4 times. Is it so? I didn't know if I had any more control over it, so I haven't read it again. But if you just get that a more inviting piece and you take out the RSVP, I think it'll be functional. And maybe
Okay.
we'll get feedback at the meeting about, how did this work to get you here? What?
So the reason that what's in the email is not the same as what's in your Pages document is that what you have in your Pages document is a little bit too big and
2
expansive.
pages, right?
But I have a link to that.
Okay,
But I'm wondering if I can take that out because it's in like now the part about the 13th meeting is
right,
now
it'll be all
obsolete.
messed up if they open that
Yeah.
up.
So I'm wondering if I can just leave that part out.
Okay, well, I embrace the piece that Guy provided because it gave a context for the meeting. I don't know if that's still there or not. But it's always a problem. It's kind of like Sarah's going to introduce the audience to the limitations of this process as well as the opportunity. And just asking people to come to a meeting to talk about values it was kind of in no context. But so I don't know. I'm not going to read it right now to do anything, but that's
Yeah.
all I want to make sure is there.
Wait, what's the thing that you want to make sure is there?
That they understand what part of the process this is in a bigger picture. And that's what Guy's introduction, that bigger type page 1 was about, saying, here's what the community plan is, here's how it functions. And probably Sarah didn't see that, or she would have probably disagreed with him as to how it functions. I heard there's a debate about that. But anyway, I think you're good to go for Wednesday, and then we'll look at it again after Wednesday.
Right. And I think how to communicate about this process and how to entice people to meetings is a worthwhile subject for many more of these meetings, because it's hard to get, it sounds really boring and bureaucratic, and most people are probably wanting to tune out. So how to make it like
sizzle.
Yeah, sizzle and make people see it as an opportunity to like influence the future of the community they live in, I think that's a worthwhile thing to put effort into. So
yeah.
Okay. I'm good then, and it will go out tonight. Like I'll probably
Thank you.
Yeah.
So back to you, Tom, about having a chance to look at it and how
Yes.
a bit cumbersome it certainly is.
I need to be enabled to share, please.
Oops. That's me sharing. That's not what I want.
That's not what I want.
Okay, you should be good to go now, Tom.
Okay, that's good. Thank you. Okay. So whoops, the wrong thing. InDesign. Yep. Okay, there we go. For the purpose of moving things around, I've imported into a publishing package. I don't intend on maintaining it there, but moving things around in Word and not having it fall on its face is questionable. Anyway, so I've taken the draft table of contents and I sort of worked it over. So I've got for your input here. Essentially, I've taken what was there and sort of expanded on it. And the idea, the reference forward, the vision, the goals, policies, and recommendations. A lot of these things are mixed up. They're going to need to be teased apart. But we're going to have to make sure that we have references to them, and I can do the hyperlinks sort of thing. Is that what you want?
I'm afraid I'm not aware of any options for doing that as far as how to dissect the document.
I can dissect it. Well, what I need to do is the directive of doing it. For instance, hopefully I can find it. I should have been able to find it.
Wonderful.
You've got a policy here, and then you've got some goals all interspersed. And I can tease those apart and put them all in one area. And the idea is that you do have the natural progression of, okay, here's what we want. Here's the kinds of things that are goals. Here's the policies that are going to implement those goals. And if there are policies which require changes, then we're going to have recommendations for going forward. And we have a set of old recommendations, previous ones. Maybe that should be first, actually, come think about it. Previous recommendations, and then the new recommendations. And maybe even that same thing for the values and so people have context if they happen to read the old document. I don't know if they will or not, but have the context of this is what was there, this is what's new. And then putting things in terms, the goals in terms of the four criteria that we had in the bylaws. And I think we can probably, and maybe it's not a neat fit, maybe some of the goals are multiple things. I don't know, I'm not the expert in this field, but it seems to me we need to touch on these areas. And if we can organize it in terms of what the bylaws are, the land use, obviously that's the thing that county cares about. But there's other things that people care about: environmental impact, public safety, public health, those sorts of things, could be called out. And then just keep that same theme going down as much as we can.
Mm-hmm.
It's very logical. That's what I like about it. At first, I love the beautiful picture, but I think the table of contents is inviting to people who are alien to this process, right? They can pick it up, they can see, and I don't know, you may want to, we can do this in the content, but people need to remember these are statewide goals adopted under statewide law. This is not, just so. But I think it flows very nicely and is logical and accessible, which would be my goals for this document.
Yeah, and I would propose that we put the things, the executive summary would mention that, but most of the executive summary shouldn't be done until we're done with the actual document.
The content, right? Yeah.
Moving things to the history, the mechanism for the community survey, all the things like maps and things, and plans for going forward. That may, no, that's not. I don't remember why I wrote that up there. I have no idea what that means. But anyway, the sorts of things which are really interesting, but really not germane to the process of what a plan is. There's a lot of good information there, but most of it doesn't apply. So what I would be doing next was continuing to break things up. To this point, I've only taken blocks of text. I've not teased things apart. And what I'll do is I'll take and put as many blocks in separate areas as I can, and then freeze that as a snapshot, and then come back and start teasing things apart and putting them where they need to be. Does that sound like an acceptable process?
Yes, to me it does.
Tom, can I give you some feedback really quick with this framework? Because I too love this table of contents. When it comes to policies, the policies that inform the rest of our process are only related to land use. So if there are other policies that are important to the community, it needs to be understood that one, we either have to roll those into the land use policies as they relate to each goal element, or there would be an appendices where it needs to be understood that these are not policies that determine land use decisions.
Okay, so that's important to know. The audience one of the audience, they're going to be consuming that. So we should have probably a place for that, but perhaps calling it in under policies is a bit too loaded.
It is. Yeah, because
So-
the policies themselves are the land use elements. And the times that I use this community plan is for three things.
Mhm.
Conditional use reviews, map amendments, which is your zone changes,
Mhm.
and ordinance amendments. That is when the criteria direct me to this plan. Variances, everything else, there's no direction to the community plan.
Okay.
So it is those three things.
Yeah, I didn't write those down. I guess I'll go back
That's
and
okay.
listen.
No, but what I would say is if we add policies beyond land use.
Yeah.
They're not part of the land use program.
Right.
Which means I can't, when it says to consider the goals and policies of the comprehensive plan, which this document is embedded into, the goals and policies that I am using for purposes of this document are land use related.
Okay. So having them here in the goals, they could ignore the last three bullets.
I don't know. It depends on how we structure them. I think with goals, I'm fine, but the policies are the drivers, and I have to make sure that those are land use related. So we're not going to talk about STRs. I can't talk about the sheriff's office, right? Any of those things that would come in, that's good work. But for purposes of this document being a land use document, I can't use those.
Okay.
Mhm.
So
what
And
can you
there's-
call them?
Well, so they are, so here's the other piece of that. Things like public services do fall under goal 11 and goal 14. So when we are looking at those policies in the community plan, I think there's a way to weave them in. It just may not be the way that you initially would like them to be, but I think there are ways to do that. I just have to be really clear when we're talking about policies, how those policies are used and what policies the land use program is looking for.
okay. So I got the feeling we might be able to finesse this in here, but it's unlikely. We absolutely shouldn't put anything under policies that isn't something that the county is going to address as a land use.
Right. So that's why if you look at the original table of contents, it talks specifically about it's broken up in land use policies in a way that is a bit different than how you're breaking them out.
Mhm.
Yeah, because this document is part of the land use program. So anything that is not land use, I think those things are relevant, but we have to find a different way to put them in.
Okay, should we? I mean,
Have other community plans have had anything that you can recall that fit these? What kind of animals these are relative to the standard community plan?
They're either silent or they're aspirational about being a clean, safe, and healthy community, right? So where you're seeing those things is in an aspirational context versus a policy-driven context.
okay, so it's
Sounds like-
appropriate to be a goal, but not appropriate to be a policy request.
Yeah, I think these are goals and aspirations. And I
Okay.
think that there's a way, as we work through those, what I will do is see how we can fold those into the policies for the land use piece.
Okay.
Right. So I think there's things that we can do, but I just want to be clear when we're talking about policies in this document, we're talking about land use policies.
Gotcha.
Thank you, Tom. I appreciate it.
Well, I profess that I am completely ignorant about this particular process, so I enjoy the education.
You're doing a great job.
Okay, so at this, I will freeze a PDF of this as I have it so far, and then start modifying it over time. Tracking changes on a document which is completely reorganized is not really feasible. I don't know if any of you looked at the change bar for the bylaws. I looked at it and I knew what I did, but I couldn't follow the changes. So I think we're going to have to rely on the fact that we snapshot it frequently and list out what the major changes are from one to one. So I don't think we're going to do it any other way.
Well,
I
and
did-
Tom, to
Go ahead.
that point, isn't it possible, because this is what I've done, is when we get a draft, I'll just sit down with with that draft and the existing community plan and take the old fashioned way and just take a felt pen and see everything that isn't there that might need to be put back in, or things that are there that need to be deleted. I mean, you can hand do this stuff. They do it all the time with in the legislature on the fly. So I think we've got that covered, and anyone who wants to go to that work can do that.
Okay. I'm allergic to handwriting in it. Although I will, for a final draft, I will print it and mark it up, but then I'll take that markup and do the editing.
Well, it will be intriguing to see how this document changes pretty significantly, and how you do that and keep a record of what there was. But maybe there's just two items, and if somebody wants to compare them, they can put them side by side.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I think that it's important to
I
get the major
guess
structure done
I've
first.
texted Guy and didn't get any response. Is that what you had, Tom, or did I cut you
One
off?
more thing, which
Okay.
is how you want to save things. What I've done is created a suggested draft changes, and some of these are a bit obsolete, and I may create an obsolete folder under these. But I'm not going to ever delete anything. We never delete anything.
Okay.
So going back up, you've got a vision and values directory. We've got survey information. I don't know how to handle those, if you want me to do anything with them or not. I have access to this, the library, so I can add documents, add directories, whatever you'd like to have.
Well, Laurie and I have threatened to bring out the long survey that everyone says is too long, and when we can get some momentum going in meetings, we think it can still be valuable for educating people about the goals themselves and what those are about. So we would like to resurrect the survey at some point when it's felt that the community has gotten engaged and are attending meetings on a regular basis, and give these people a week to deal with it. And
Okay, so you're talking about this?
the one that you got from Chris? Yes.
Okay.
So
And we're not thinking about it as the survey results. We're thinking about it as a starting point for a conversation.
right. So in order for people to understand the goals, which is asking a lot because they're kind of platitudes, and so how do things work with that? We would like to give them the opportunity to ask questions based on knowledge rather than what they think they might be or something. And so maybe that's not going to work. Maybe everyone will vote against doing this, but I think at a certain point, people should be given a tool that allows them to explore the land use goals that the state is basing all this stuff on. And that document exists and we should use it. So anyway, that remains to be, that's there in the archive, and we might drag it out and get it rolling a little bit, but I'll leave it at that for now.
Randall, to that
Yeah.
point, I am doing a land use 101 refresher with the Oceanside CAC, specifically their committee. I am hosting that April 22nd at night. I would be happy to do that for this committee and the community as well. That might be very helpful because it's been a couple of years, and I would do a very condensed, I mean, it's a 2-hour crash course, but I think especially if you want to bring the survey back in some capacity for the committee, the community, and that survey, it might be something we want to do as well that people might find some relevance with. But it'd be a 2-hour thing, no guest speakers. It would be me giving that summary and refreshing everybody's minds of those goals and the planning program and how it relates to our communities.
Okay.
Would that be a thing for the May meetings?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think we could do that in May.
Sure.
Let's see, the 16th. Well, let's look at that.
Because I'm pretty certain there aren't many people more ignorant about the process than I am. And I would love to hear it.
Okay. Well, let's see, new value proposals, new value.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
and I think it would help, Randall, if you do want to bring that survey back, or at least in some fashion, it would help people get through it and jog their mind of those town halls rather than everybody having to go back and listen to 12 hours of really good presentations. I think we could give them just enough to where they could feel like they could fill out that survey following that. And maybe we do that and put that survey up following that training. And then whoever wants to do it can do it, or, you know, whatever you want to do. But I think to make that survey successful in some form, I need to do that work with you guys too first.
So I have a comment about making it be one of the May meetings. If we're thinking about transparency and letting people know at the general meetings what's coming up, we said that April and May meetings would be about vision and values. So if instead what we're doing in May is land use 101 and starting to talk about goals and that, then we're kind of not doing what we said we were going to do. So
I think June is soon enough myself to that point.
Okay.
Given that we've already booked ourselves pretty seriously in May, we'd have to bump a meeting and replace this with it. And even if people don't know about the May agenda per se, or that hasn't been reinforced with announcements and such, I think Laurie's right. We should stick with what we're doing, and then maybe June is part of the kickoff of June, because that's when you're done with the vows and you're starting to look into what you're going to implement. And so it gets a little more serious. I think people start getting deeper into it, I hope, by then. So let's say that's in early June.
Yeah, and I could make that part of my kickoff presentation on Wednesday, is to say, you know, there's several pieces of this, and, you know, following the work of the vision and values, we'll have a land use 101 in June. So I can start getting them ready. So people are like, well, wait a minute, what about this? And what about that? We can all say it's coming. So let's focus on this right now, because that other piece will start in June. And then they all know it's out there.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, let's figure out as we get closer to that what week it is. There's a general meeting, and then we got to figure out the next group of meetings with Guy and Lynne. So this might be an important kickoff to those other meetings, or a preview.
It would be nice when we do that, when we start planning the meetings for June, if we know how we're going to predict not necessarily the topics, but the timeline for the meetings through the summer, say through the end of September, maybe. It would be nice if we could tell people these are tentatively what we're intending stay tuned on the website to make sure, to confirm them, but this is what we're thinking, then people could start planning. And we could start planning what the topics are going to be, like where things will fit within that time frame.
Right. Okay.
I also have just a tiny comment on the table of contents. I don't know where this will go in the meeting, but on number 4, it said previous plan and new plan or something like that. And I would rather not have it be previous because it sounds like you're done with that. And so I would rather that, and I'm not, we can tweak this later, but just so that we have it on the agenda, I would rather that say original or current or something else rather than previous.
Yeah, I think current is the best word because it's it's real now.
Yeah.
Yep.
Good point, Laurie. Thank you.
Okay, however, the previous does seem to be appropriate here because we've made recommendations previously. And then we're going to, and there are three things that can happen with them. They either accepted, they're still pending, or they were declined. I think that's useful, he said questioningly.
So how does
I think maybe this helps is, again, in this requirement to educate people 50 years after land use planning was adopted in Oregon, and many people were not here for the process of adoption, which was intense. Maybe the legally, it is our community plan. It's not like we wrote one before and it is our governing document for the purposes, the 3 purposes Sarah outlined. And so to me, the thing about previous means it's over. And
well, it is over in the sense that this is a new document.
Yeah, but it isn't over because no new documents. No new documents been adopted, and it is the plan that is in effect till next 2025. So
okay, I can make that current too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an amendment. Now the structuring, there's a massive overhaul, but when I get to hearings, what it is it's an amendment of the Nescoan community plan. That's how I have to phrase that.
Okay. Fair enough.
Good. Important edit right there.
Yeah. That's what I'm here for, to make the important edits. You guys just got to figure out what those are.
Well, we just did, and that's good.
Okay. Fair enough.
There's no.
I will, no other thing, I will tidy this up a bit more, and then I'll put out a notice of where I put the PDF. And then slings and arrows, all that's good stuff.
Make available. Okay, that's great. Okay. We look forward to notice and connection to that. Okay, well, nothing from Guy, so I hope he's had a good appointment. And now I'm going to worry about him. I think that's it for today, unless we put off something and didn't come back to it.
I think we have to do the agenda for the next meeting. Did I steal your thunder, Jeff?
No, you did me a favor.
I'd say he prefers that.
And also, just wanted to confirm that you're going to have a normal meeting on May 13th.
Yes, the next every other Monday at 2 p.m.
Yeah, I'm just always checking in to make sure that there's nothing going on where we need to reschedule. So because I post notes. So
but in that same vein, we currently have a meeting on Memorial Day, which I assume is not going to happen.
Well, it's not Memorial Day, it's a Memorial Day weekend, and we are having a meeting to resolve some of these values so that we can present them at the Nescoan Community Association meeting at 4. So
I had something and maybe I've just got it wrong. I have a 2 PM community plan meeting on May 27th.
No, it's May 26th,
Okay.
Sunday.
Okay,
That's the annual meeting of kicks off the summer for the community association. So we're meeting at 2 that day and their meeting's at 4.
So no, Lynn is right. If you
27th?
just have a meeting every 2 weeks, the one after the 13th is the 27th. So if you're not going to have a regular, we don't like, that's far enough out that like we just got eyes on it. So like we'll like I'll know ahead of time. But Lynn's right that your regularly scheduled 2 meetings for 2 meetings from now is on Memorial Day.
Okay, well, we schedule a meeting on the 26th. Discussion polling of the new and original values to solidify the values of the community plan. And that'll be enough
and
to do
what time is that meeting?
2 PM at the fire hall. And
Okay,
then
so that's not one of our hybrid meetings with Sarah. That's just
it is.
It is. Okay, got it. I'm clear. Thank you.
And do we
Wait,
have,
Wait,
do
but
we
the
have
fire hall doesn't
Wi-Fi?
have Wi-Fi, or at least doesn't have good Wi-Fi.
It does, it has rickety Wi-Fi.
Like
I don't know
Alex,
how to-
who is on the who's a volunteer
Fire
with the
department.
department was saying that like that it does have Wi-Fi, but it's not. We probably can't count on it.
What I would recommend is making that an in-person only meeting.
Can we do that? I thought we couldn't do that.
No, you can. You're still giving them enough time. I mean, you want the hybrid option. You want to be inclusive. But for that one, especially if you're kind of using that as your prep to present to the NCA as a whole at 4 o'clock, I think it would be, I think you can appropriately say in person only. And I would say just due to Wi-Fi limitations, you know,
Logistically, it doesn't work there, but that's where the big meeting is. And so we're not can't do it.
So is this an information only meeting?
No, it's a.
Because
It's
just FYI, when the new bylaws get in, that won't be legal.
so
Really?
it's not information only.
Yeah, no, it's not.
Okay.
If you're going to conduct business, I don't think you can do that.
Yeah, I would say, I thought that was just like the prep for prime time at 4 PM. But
Well-
if it's,
Well, we can think about this.
Yeah.
We
So-
could present where we are at this time, because we're not going to have time to do that at the general meeting. We're not going to be able to take it half an hour. The meeting only lasts about an hour. So, I don't know.
I would also, if there are substantive changes, you meet at 2 and that meeting is at 4, I would also be concerned. That doesn't give you a lot of time. You know, I would say whatever.
Just the other thing I want to throw in here by way of information that is important that you may not have is the next Kovack Beach Golf Course annual meeting starts at 5 o'clock on the 26th.
Yeah.
And that's a well-attended event in the community. So I just want you to have that on your radar screen. And then I think I heard this right, our current hybrid meeting is at 2 PM on the 26th. Is that correct?
That was the plan.
Yeah.
And go ahead, Laurie.
Well, it's not as if we're going to be voting on anything that implements anything. It was another forum for input, right? Just another forum to share ideas and bring them forward to.
So that would be an information meeting. I mean, that would be okay.
Yeah, and I think that's what it makes the most sense to have an information meeting to say we've had these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 meetings, and this is our presentation to whoever is willing to come early to find out about this specifically, so that when we have the meeting and we have an agenda item in the NCA meeting, we can present that and said, we just presented to this group. Here's where we are in our process. We've solidified a number of these things, but they'll still be open as we go through the process this summer to input. So we just wanted to tell you we've made progress. These things are in place and we can put them up on the wall, project it or write them out or whatever. And then people will be aware of it and they might be more engaged after that, given that we get 100 people at that meeting. So let's make it information only, and that allows us to present the meeting following it in a summary manner and to encourage participation, and that's most suitable for that meeting. We don't need to do it. We had talked about potentially doing a straw poll, but maybe not at the general meeting. Let's just rally the troops at that meeting. You good with that, Laurie? Or okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So can
only
I,
for an in-person.
yeah. Can I ask a question too? Because I'm seeing the work you're putting in and the efforts for outreach, and I can't thank you enough for that. What you guys are doing is amazing. But I do have a question, just kind of to help all of you too, because your time with this and your time outside of this is also valuable. So we're having all these meetings to talk about vision and values before that are going to be hybrid and accessible in several different ways. Are you expecting a different crowd at the 2 p.m. meeting that you're not going to see at the 4 p.m. meeting?
I'm hoping they stick around, but I don't know.
No.
Okay.
The 4 p.m. meeting, which is the information meeting, the 2 meeting or the 4 p.m. meeting?
Or both?
The
Or
2
both.
p.m. meeting.
The 2 p.m. meeting.
And then what's the 4 p.m. meeting for?
That's the Nesquin Community Association meeting.
Great.
And
So people can leave. If they just care about
they can leave.
Plan, they can go.
Yeah.
Right?
But they usually want to stick around for the NCA meeting.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just going to tell you, on Memorial Day weekend, you are not, and it's going to be beautiful. You're not going to have regular citizens who want to drop in and say something about the future of Nesquin and spend 4 hours in meetings. They have their families. It is a packed weekend. That's why we have the golf course annual meeting then. Most people in Nesquin next to 4th of July.
That's a good point. That you may be just asking a lot if you're going to have a meeting immediately before the NCA meeting. Yeah.
Well, I'm wondering, are you going to be visiting and connecting with the same group of people? So instead of having 2 meetings, maybe focus your energy and efforts to the NCA meeting. I mean, are there going to be people that would show up at 2 o'clock? Because if there are, then I agree with you. You want to reach out to them. But if the people at 2 o'clock are the same people you're going to see at 4 o'clock, to also give you guys some extra time that day, can you just shift it all to the at 4 p.m. NCA meeting?
Well, I have to
your
be
families are going to be here too
anyway, because I'm on that board as well as this chair.
We don't have control over what they present, so.
Right, but
yeah, I'm just trying to figure out if there's a way to where you can consolidate these,
or if just that having both the meetings back to back is the right move.
Could we start at 3:30? And because I don't think the NCA will give us more than 5 minutes. It seems like they just
goodness. Okay.
rush.
They try to. They're really good about doing their whole meeting in an hour. They don't take 2 hours, so it's a short. It's like bam, 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 and you're out of there. So there isn't any in-depth time. The NCA board doesn't want to sit around tapping their feet while we expound upon and get polls and do all kinds of different things. We are hoping to have a summary by that point that we could present. So,
but Rand, how do we do a summary to meet the public meeting law or at least the bylaws? I mean, part of what we've got to do is if you want to engage people, you've got to give them something to think about, hopefully in advance, ask the question, get the data, move on. And so and it's a holiday weekend. I think asking people to do things on the 4th of July and Memorial Day is really defeats the purpose of what NESCON is all about for a lot of people. So, but that's just my opinion. That's a very narrow opinion, and I'll leave it at that. But again, you're going to compete with other events. The NESCON Beach Golf Club, of course, is going to have something, and it's set. It's been done for years. It's always done on the same time. And some of the homeowners associations are going to be doing parties. It's just saying. I'll stop there.
Could you present at the NCA meeting in a way to say, this is the work that's being done. We have a survey. It's online. We'd love for you to take it. So you're using that 5 minutes or however long it is that the NCA is giving you. And that's really what you're using to direct people to participate. Because what I'm hearing is the purpose of these 2 meetings that day is to get people to participate in the vision and value survey. Is that right?
In the process, yes.
Okay. So is that where you're using your time? To Lynn's point, I'm worried you're going to sit there and unfortunately you're not going to get a lot of people or anyone, and your biggest bang for your buck is going to be that 5 or 10 minute presentation at the NCA that I can totally understand you want to take advantage of. I'm just not sure how to help you get the most out of this.
Well, Laurie and I will discuss this as to figure out to narrow down our goal and figure out how to best to do it. And we won't dawdle on that. We'll get that done this week.
But Rand, I want to be clear on your goal because I thought we'd grounded this issue already. And if we're revisiting it, I'd like to put it on the agenda for the next meeting. Are you proposing handing out the survey on Memorial Day weekend to get people to show or linking
Sarah
them
said
online?
that. I didn't say anything about a survey.
Okay.
She was just giving an example of if she wanted to do something.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
When I brought up the past survey, I was thinking of that as being something that would be in the summer when people were talking about land use goals, and we were trying to get people to think about what do we want, how do we want to approach some of those issues like the watershed, where we could go back to that as an educational thing that people could look at. I was not thinking about the survey
As a
yeah,
numerical reference or anything like that.
No, I mean, I'm just thinking of it as educational stuff for people who actually want to engage and think about what we could propose.
Okay. Okay. Well, Laurie and I will do our homework and sort that out as to what happens, and then we'll let you all know. And
you can put it on the agenda if you want, and we can report.
Right. So the agenda will include potentially Guy having an update after his checking in with Sarah, and potentially kind of similar to today, the timeline tracking. I don't know how your timeline work. Are you going to work with Tom to kind of line it up with things that are there, or just Lynn, are you going to be working with Guy to sort out your meetings for the implementing ordinances and all that stuff yet? Because
So-
June.
So sorry, I was just going to run my dog outside. He's getting desperate. I'm going to send out a timeline with my
Okay.
minutes little thing, and it's going to, I've captured all the things that we've talked about and I'm going to put together a draft timeline of what's done
Right.
when.
Okay.
It's not going to be tied to all the meeting dates because that's really a next step thing for everyone
Sure.
to figure out collectively. But I'll get a draft out there that people can edit. What I get wrong, just tell me, and I'll edit it and I'll send out a final version of the draft timeline, and then we'll get guys' input electronically, I would guess. And I'm still on the call. I'm just opening a door to let my dog out, but I'm still here.
Okay, you just happen to come up on right at the wrong time.
Okay.
Okay.
And that's going to be an agenda item that Lynn is going to talk about in her timeline.
Yeah, Lynn's timeline, May 26th meeting, update from Guy. Probably and Sarah, because I think they're working.
You probably want to have a follow-up on your 2 meetings this week.
Right, April 17th and 20th.
And Randall, I'm emailing Guy now. I want to make sure that he and I are on the same page and that the outcome and the expectations of this process are understood before Wednesday's kickoff meeting. So I will meet with him before Wednesday. So he and I can talk about his role as a CAC member, planning commission member, and where that all fits into the larger structure of this process.
That is fantastic. Thank you, Sarah. That's good news. So then we also have. That's the other agenda.
I mean, I think your main thing is getting ready for the meetings in May.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's, you don't have an explicit agenda item for that yet, but it's sort of implicit in a couple of them.
Well, we can have that be part of the talking about the May 26th meeting and all the May meetings.
Oh, yeah, all right. And so May meetings, and I forgot to put this on the agenda, but there's a executive meeting next week. I expect that mainly you're going to want to talk about what happened at your meetings this week, and then May meetings, but you won't have had a meeting to like make any new decisions about May. So it's probably mostly going to be reporting on your meetings this week.
Well, yeah, no, Laurie and I will meet this week, so we'll have some information about May meetings. We already had descriptions of them in general regarding the new deals. So what the executive meeting is which day?
23rd, Tuesday.
Okay. So summary of that. What else? Tom, will you have an update by then, or we?
Yes, I'll have a PDF produced by then. So you want to look at the PDF. I didn't say it's going to be beautimous.
I thought it looked pretty snazzy.
Of course it will
today.
be. Debrief. I think that's it. That's enough to do in a meeting for certain. Okay, Lynn's timeline, May meetings, including the 26th, an update from Guy and Sarah, review of the meetings we had on the 17th and the 20th, and summary of the executive committee meeting and Tom's update. Does that work for you, Jeff?
Yep, that looks like that I think that covers it, and that's plenty to do.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, 2 hours, a little longer and I'd like to go, but we did it. So thank you all. Thanks for being here. And I'm glad we still have, we figured out the 18th or the 20th, I'm sorry. So we'll be ad-libbing that. So that's all good. And thank you very much. Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you
Right.
all.
Bye.
Bye-bye.